Okay, and welcome back to Fast Jet Performance then. My name is Tim Davies, and today I am back in my attack shack dropping some truth bombs on your personal battlefields, helping you to win the wars that you are fighting. And today we are going to look at emails from 4 young people, 2 boys, 2 girls, and we're going to go through them, and hopefully the problems that they brought to me we're going to solve today with a little bit of advice, which means that you don't have to have them. Okay, you don't have to be going through what these people are going through. So let's start off then, shall we?
Ninja Fox 2. Ninja Fox 2 kill. Ninja out 090.
4 emails. First one is about lack of confidence, young lady. Next one is a British Pakistani young man has written to me. The third one is a lady who is talking about multi-engine versus fast jet. And then the last one is about a young guy who's questioning himself and on the verge of self-sabotage. Now, if one of those sounds interesting to you, there's a timestamp in the description. Go and hit that. I will try and only devote a maximum of 10 minutes to each one. So I don't want to drag this out, guys. I know everyone's busy. So you can actually either stay for the whole lot or just listen to the bit that interests you. The first one then is from a lady we're going to call Elle. Okay. And it says, "Hello, Tim. I recently discovered your podcast and YouTube page when I was looking and researching around a topic of piloting. Your page is amazing and I'm hooked watching your videos. I'm 17 years old and have reached a dilemma that I have not chosen the career path that I would really like to do. After researching and looking into your expertise area, I'm definite I would like to join the RAF and train to become a pilot, although I seem to be having doubts. When talking to my mum, she seemed to give off the opinion that it is an unrealistic job, and due to my background or that I am a girl, she thinks I would not succeed. Not to toot my own horn, but most things I've accomplished in my life have been through sheer dedication and motivation, or the face people told me I would never accomplish it, or the fact people told me I would never accomplish it. For example, I was the youngest member in my karate school to be awarded with a black belt after having to fight boys twice my size. I also deliberately put myself in situations which scare me so I can overcome them. I used to be petrified of heights, but managed to overcome that by going rock climbing, which doesn't seem to be a big deal. I'm very proud of accomplishing that on my own. It's a big deal to me, actually, because most pilots have a bit of a height issue, to be honest. Kind of all of scared of heights. When previously watching your videos about the 18-year-old boy who fulfilled a plethora of incredible achievements, I realised I am severely underqualified. Not knowing from experience and not having anyone around that is involved in the piloting area, it would mean a lot for your opinion. At school, I did not do any maths and science for A-levels. At GCSE, I pulled off a decent grade. And the area I live in does not have anything like air cadets or any flying opportunities, as well as my family's financial problems made any chance for me to do anything or travel anywhere quite impossible. But I'm determined to finish my A-levels and gain the qualifications in case anything goes wrong, e.g. if this whole RF thing doesn't go to plan, as I've always learned to have a backup plan. I apologise as this is very I and me, but I really didn't know who to ask or what to do. And your skill set and knowledge over the years could hopefully help me on what to do. Do I have a realistic shot at becoming a pilot, or should I find another career path? I hope you and your family are well in this pandemic." Okay, pretty sad email, really, I think you'll find. Young lady, underconfident, not being given the confidence from the parents, nothing really at school either to motivate her or for her to latch onto, and she fails to be able to find the resources to reach out to close by that are going to give her some information that might help her make that decision. So where did she come? FJP, that's right, the doctor's in the house. Now, if you are 16 or 17 years old and you're writing to me telling me you want to be a pilot in the Air Force, the majority of these I don't answer because I get so many of them. And if I sense that you haven't done the work, you haven't put the effort in, I'm not going to put the effort in for you. So you need to go and do that work first, guys, and get online, go to the careers office, read around it, be the person that knows the most about what you're applying for. I cannot advise that enough. However, this young lady doesn't seem to be in a position where she has that capability, through no fault of her own, by the way, which is why I wouldn't normally answer an email under 18 years old, to be honest, because I'm a business and I have a duty of care. But this young lady here at 17 obviously is worried that she's woken up to aviation and she wants to be in the military and she wants to see all this. And unfortunately, she's probably done A-levels that may not be the right ones. And she's a bit worried now that this is not going to help her get in. My information to her is she needs to go and get some research done on this. Okay, there's the careers office website. Well, go to the Royal Air Force website, for example. It's all neatly laid out there. It tells you exactly what you need to know. I can do it right now for her, really. I haven't actually got this thing open, but I'm just going to type in RAF careers into my browser here, hit return. What's coming up with? Right, first one, ref.mod.uk. RAF are recruiting, find your new role in the RAF, okay? So we're doing this now, and I'll see whether it's possible for me to just put this on, but, it's pretty easy. Careers and benefits, right, I accept. Here we go, life in the Royal Air Force. And you scroll down, it talks about no other employer, no ordinary job. Well, that kind of great stuff. Stonewall is there, of course. It's very inclusive, we all know that. And it says, find your role. Click that button, shall we? Okay, it's got a live chat there. I mean, they're really on like a recruitment drive. They really are. So find your role. Obviously, we're talking about pilot, engineer, apprentice, rejoiners, graduates, reserves. So let's have a look. Let's say this young lady is, well, let's just find viewer roles. Viewer roles, here we are. There's a lot of roles in the Air Force, by the way. Not just flying. There's a lot of great roles. And this is one of the worst things because you can go into the Air Force as one role and not be able to do the other one. Look at these roles. Air and Space Operations Specialist. Wow. How cool is that? Personal support, general technician, mover, supply storage, distribution specialist, air operation control sergeant, air operation control officer, engineering officer. And some of these you obviously have to, weapon system officer. I know a lot of people going for this at the moment. WISO, weapon system operator. So, weapon system operator, sorry, not officer. A lot of people going for that. Where are we? Cyberspace, firefighter, come on, medical. So you will need specialist qualifications if you want to go for one of these specialist roles. However, when we're going for pilot, you just need to be extremely good looking. Obviously, hence I got in. I mean, I didn't really need to interview, to be honest. They just saw me and went, get in that cockpit. Right, here we go. So it says down here, right, you need to be aged 17 and a half to 25 years old. The Royal Navy is a lot old, has a later date for that, I think it's 36. GCSEs at grade C4, and it goes into some details I don't really understand because you guys changed it now, didn't you? Have at least 2 A2 levels, 3 hires at grade C or above, but it doesn't, excluding general studies, critical thinking, it doesn't say what they have to be, you see. So this is the thing. I think this young lady's getting worked up over nothing because she hasn't actually done the research. And that's fine. I'm doing the research for her right now. I'm doing the research for all of you guys online. I'm literally reading the website. I would just read the website. Here we go. So education requirements, GCSE, maths, English language, 3 other subjects at C, okay? That's the only thing I've got. I'll have at least 2 A2 levels, 3 hires at grade C or above. So she's fine. Here we go. Yeah, she's fine. So that's the thing. It says here. Yeah, you can see what the RF accepts in lieu of GCSEs and A levels here if you haven't done them. So you click a link. I'm not going to link to the Royal Air Force website, guys, on this podcast. It's like literally go and read it yourself. It's got some equivalency. Lots of page goes on. I mean, deep dive into that, young lady, you know what I mean? Okay, deep dive into that. But the main thing that does concern me, okay, the fact she hasn't done that, and that's okay. There probably is no careers office, no air training corps, nothing like that, fine. I see this a lot with parents telling their children, and it's a protective thing, it's mothering is what it is. It is mothering / smothering. It's all done in good faith. The mother says, well, I want to protect my daughter from the fact she might be rejected from this thing, so I'm going to tell her that, as she says here, that she might not succeed. So why isn't she going to do something else? You come from the wrong background. I'm not going to say that I was poor and look at my story and how amazing I did, because it's fundamentally not true. But my mother and father were police. Well, my mother was a health visitor. My father was a police officer. He never made above the rank of police constable. His pay wasn't very much at all. And he put both of them together. Health visitors not paid that very well. Public sector, and they put 4 children all through university. You think about how much that must have cost back then. Obviously now that was before the time of fees, of course, but all the housing and everything else, food and all that kind of thing. All 4 kids. So I had to work pretty hard, and I've got an history of academic failure. So if you want to know about academic failure, I'm the guy to speak to. But I did eventually get a 2-2 in engineering out of the University of West of England, and that was enough to get me into the Navy. The Navy tends to look, I think, at the individual a lot more than the qualifications. I think the Air Force tends to look more at the qualifications because they can pick and choose. Because most people who want to fly go Air Force, they don't kind of go who else flies. I had an email from a young lady joining the Army Air Corps recently. I think that's fantastic. She was very nice, actually. Wrote really well. So I would just go and look at all trades, all services. I'm not saying don't listen to your parents, but you've got to remember that once you decide to do something, people are going to knock you down. I used to smoke cigarettes, all right? And when I stopped smoking cigarettes, people would offer me cigarettes. People that never offered me cigarettes before would say, hey, Tim, do you want a cigarette? Because they don't want me leaving them behind. They feel that I'm rejecting them in some way. I'm not rejecting them. I'm just rejecting something that wasn't very good for me. So unfortunately, what the language you're hearing from your parents saying you're not going to make it, you're not rejecting your parents, you're rejecting that language. You're rejecting that negativity. A lot of young people are writing me at the moment, telling me about mental health issues and all these kind of things. And of course you've got mental health issues because at the moment you're very young and there's a lot of inputs coming into you, and you're going there and you're watching Instagram and you're on Twitter and you're on Snapchat and you're on TikTok, which used to be Musical.ly, of course. You've probably got Facebook, or you might not use it because you're using something else. There's a lot going on. If you want to sort your mental health out, you've got to turn your back on a lot of these things. And if you want to go and do something like fly and be a pilot in the Air Force, focus. It's what it's all about. If you're focusing, there's a lot of people that also want to go into the Air Force that are not focusing. So you really take the upper hand. You can come back to your TikTok and everything later on. Don't get me wrong. But people in the Air Force that are going through flying training, it is academic, guys. It is pretty full on. And it is hard work, but you do it with your friends and you all move through together. You go through one flying phase to another flying phase to another flying phase. But one thing we stress to the students is, you've got to get your head in the books. We always say head in the books. If you start failing trips, we're questioning their knowledge the whole time. And if they're, we can fail them before they even step into an airplane. I've seen people, some of my men would fly with students, and I used to have the odd instructor come to me and say, Tim, are you happy if I don't fly with this dude? And I'd be like, what's up? And he goes, well, he's failed the brief. And what it means is he's been questioning the brief. What's this bold-faced emergency drill? What would you do in this situation? And he hasn't known it. So there's no point going airborne because he hasn't even read the lesson or understood what's going on. So you've got to put the work in. That's a lesson for life right there, okay? You've got to put that work in. And I think this young lady has a real opportunity if she was to put that work in. We've just proven that she's got qualifications that she can use to enter. She said herself here that she is quite accomplished in life. They will love her backstory about coming from a place where she wasn't. There were financial problems in the family, and she did something about it. I tell you what, this is very interesting to me because a lot of the students that did very well in flying training came from backgrounds that weren't privileged in any way. They're really hard times, and these guys understood the power of hard work. I'm a libertarian, right? So I'm always going to say that. I get criticised a lot about that, don't get me wrong, but I do believe the power of hard work, guys. And this lady obviously does, because that's exactly what she's doing. And she even says at the bottom, she's very humble. I apologise that this is very I and me. I didn't know who to ask. And she's humbled about it. I'm humbled that she's written to me. All right. So I'm telling you right now, the power that this young lady has is in her background and is in the ability for her to accomplish things and neglect the negativity of other people around her and be singularly focused in moving forwards. Okay. Does everyone understand that? Let's move on. Good. Okay, the next one we're going to then is a young British Pakistani chap. Now, you can say British Pakistani or Pakistani British. It doesn't really matter which way round you have a look at it. They make up 2% of the British population. And let's talk about that British population, shall we? So it's 87% white or white British is what it's called. So then we've got 13% now of an ethnic minorities or ethnicity in effect. That is not white British. I've got the thing up here, and I had to look up to see what percentage was Asian or Asian British Pakistani, which is 2%, just behind the Indian contingent, which is 2.3%. And then you've got Bangladeshi, Chinese or other Asian. Asian themselves make up a total of 7%, with black or black British only being 3%. Mixed is 2%, and then other ethnic, which doesn't define, is 0.9%. Total of 64 million people in the United Kingdom, of which then British Pakistani makes up 1.1 million. So actually, 2% is quite a large group. What this chap says is, I want to put that out there for you, so you know where this guy's coming from when you hear what he's written, okay? And then I'll explain it to you. Hello, sir. I'm writing to you to ask a short question about joining the Air Force as a pilot. It's been my dream to fly the Typhoon. I'm a British citizen, as I was born in the UK. Both my parents were born in the UK, but their parents are from Pakistan. Will this affect me from joining as a pilot, or will it make me work 10 times hard that the other candidates because I'm not white? Thank you, sir. Have a great day. There's a lot of disturbance in people at the moment because of what's happening with the pandemic and also what's happened with race relations. That's pretty much come out from the United States, where they are different from what they are in the UK. The United States is a lot more polarizing in the way it addresses race than Britain is. And you can walk around London and you can see how ethnically diverse London is. And it's a beautiful thing. The reason that people flock into the UK and America is because of how tolerant those countries are. They don't stay in Italy, France, Germany. They don't stay in those countries for a reason. They come to the UK because they know they're going to be treated with respect. And as a libertarian, I'll say this, but also they're going to be treated on the actual effort and the hard work they put in. That's very important. So this young man is saying, look, I want to join the Air Force, but is it for guys like me, guys of colour, whatever, I'm an Asian guy, what about it? Asking that question, and you can see where the prejudices already are there with him, and that's fine, I understand this. He says, will it affect me from joining? Will my race affect me from joining as a pilot? Or will it make me work, will it make me work 10 times as hard than the other candidates because I'm not white? What I take away from that, you can listen to that in two different ways. It's like, am I going to have to work 10 times harder because I'm an Asian guy? Or the way he's worded it, or will it make me work 10 times hard than the other candidates? He means than the other candidates because I'm not white. Will it make me? So will he be empowered by the fact he is in a minority within the service, and therefore will he work harder to get where he wants to go? You see the theme that we've got here about working hard, guys. Okay, I'm not moving away from that. I'm working, that's what I'm telling you. So my answer to this young man is, now, I haven't written him an email back, but I have trained Indian, what have I trained then? So Indian, Qatari, Saudi, obviously Norwegian, Belgian, French, Canadian, American. There's loads I'm missing here, by the way. I think I had a Finnish student as well. And I would say that there was no difference really in their ability. We did have some, when I was at Valley, and I don't know why this was, but some of the Indian students struggled more on the Hawk T1. But the main struggle that we have with these students is on Phase 4 fast jet flying training fast jet flying training is the fact that it's to do with the language. Okay, it's just the fact they've come overseas from Saudi or they've come from Qatar, obviously highly educated in their own militaries. They come to us, they go through language courses, but in the cockpit sometimes, and the Indians found this, you've got a mask on and you're speaking through a microphone, and we talk fast in the cockpit, although we try to slow it down for them, but air traffic will talk quickly and they sometimes mishear things. And of course, their brain is working harder to understand and to pass the information, to break down the information of what they just heard. Now, we understand that, and we obviously make massive amends as a flying instructor for these guys. But race, it's really strange when I talk about race or when I talk about women, because when you're in a cockpit, it's not, when you're in a fast jet cockpit, you're in the front seat. I can't see you. I can't even hear you when you're not talking. You literally, and this, don't make me think, don't pretend then or use this and think that, because what I'm about to say is you're just a pilot to me. You're a student when you're in a cockpit, obviously, but you're a student when you're in the building, when you're everywhere. I'm not saying that when I see the colour of your skin, I treat you differently, because that's fundamentally not true. Unconscious biases aside, that we all have, by the way, because we all are, I said this before, I got shouted down for it, but we all hold some elements of racism within us. And I think once we understand that is a thing that's just there, then we can work through that. It's very difficult, and this is the problem with young people, because intellectually you're quite immature at a young age, and that will develop as you move through life. And of course, I'm intellectually immature in other areas as well now, but I do have about 25, and this guy here, 28 years of extra thinking that I've done. And this is a very young man, of course, whose prefrontal cortex is still developing. So, of course, consequence and things like that haven't really manifested themselves in a mature way. But that's okay. That's okay. So he's thinking, is my race going to hold back, or will it help me work really hard? If you ask any of those students that came through the flying schools I was on there, any of the Qataris, Indians, they would say that race wasn't an issue. I know this. I still speak to them. They're still all over the world now. They're flying Typhoons out of Qatar or something. I still speak to them. For them, it was about the hard work. And it was about not embarrassing themselves, embarrassing their country, or embarrassing the family. It was like, just as long as I've put the work in and I've worked as hard as I possibly can work, then there's nothing else I can do, And that's what I always say to these young people that are going through flying training. It's like, don't get yourself chopped, don't fail flying training, and then look back in 5 years' time thinking, if only I'd worked harder, or if only I'd read the books that Tim told me to go and read, if only I'd done the work in the evenings that I had to work. You only get one shot at this, it doesn't come around again. And I always say to these young people, someone's got to fly that jet. Someone said that to me, by the way, when I was failing all my exams. They said, look, Tim, someone's got to fly the jet. You may as well put an application into the Navy. Someone's got to fly those helicopters, may as well be you. And my father was very encouraging in that as well. So I did have parents that were encouraging in it. So I was quite fortunate in that respect. So I'd say to this young guy, get that application in. I did write back to him actually, and I said that. I said, you seem like a smart guy. Do the smart thing. Get an application into the Air Force. I think you'll be surprised. I think you'll find actually when you get into the Air Force, you'll be like, oh, there's loads of ethnic minorities within the service. The reason also I'm not going off on a race thing at the moment, because I have been doing that recently on my own Facebook thing, trying to understand the arguments and to correct, I say naive. No, I don't mean naive, but to correct some intolerance around. When you look at 87% of the population as white British, putting 13% of the population as not white British, because this comes down to white privilege and everything else. A lot of this comes down to just a different balance of numbers. Does that make sense? 87% versus 13%. If I was a business and I had to make plasters, for example, I'd make white ones. I'm going to sell more white ones than I'm going to sell black plasters. I'm using that as an example. And that's how businesses kind of think. They don't think I'm not going to make black plasters because of, if they could see a market for black plasters, and there is one, by the way, there's a market where they can sell, a lot. It's all got the figures here, guys, but I think it's, 5 million plasters of non-white colours. And they do now, they make blue plasters. Then I understand that. That's not the argument, by the way, behind white privilege. White privilege is about structural racism. It goes back decades, all right? Absolute decades. I'm just talking about what people perceive sometimes as these arguments they come out with, which are very shallow arguments without much depth or nuance. You know what I mean? Without much depth or nuance. So when this guy gets into the military, and I have not looked at the ethnic diversity of the Royal Air Force, and I could bring that up right now for you, but I could do that, but I'm not going to, because it'll take me too long. I'll try and put a figure down there. You will see that 14% of the Royal Air Force, for example, are women at the moment. It's the highest number of any other service, just happens to be 14%. And of course, we want to make that higher. We want to have more diversity within our militaries. So there's every chance that when he gets into the military, he will look around and he will go, oh, yeah, there's loads of people in here. Loads of people. I flew with all sorts of people. And it's really hard sometimes when you talk to people about that, because they just don't believe you. It's almost like they don't want to believe. I don't believe you did, Tim. Okay. All right. Okay. I don't mind. We're going to move on from that, though. I did write back to him and saying, put an application in. Girl, boy, girl. This one's a girl. Right. This lady is interested in multi-engine versus fast jet aviation. I think she is quite young. Yes, the young one. Now, listen. You have to understand that there's parents and there's schools and there's teachers out there and stuff, and then there's me, and you don't know me, and you write to me as a 16-year-old, and I'm a business, okay? So it's difficult for me sometimes to answer all your emails because I'm giving you advice. And you're a 16-year-old schoolgirl, all right? I'm a 45-year-old man, and I don't have kids and everything, and I'm married to a great woman, but, you're kind of exposing me a little bit here, you know what I'm saying? So, thank you for writing in. But, just please exhaust everything else first, and, it just makes my business a little bit more protected. But look, we will talk to you. The gist of this then is, I don't want people saying something like, oh, you're writing to schoolgirls and stuff. Don't get me wrong. Right. It's about, so I tried to get a female pilot for you, and it ended up with the only female pilot I was going to be able to get was a lady who'd been involved in fast jets, and she's busy and I'm busy, and she didn't really want to, well, it wasn't that she didn't want to come on, but the timings weren't going to work. I've written about women in aviation before. If you Google, what the hell is it? I had to Google it this morning. I Googled it. I have to Google my own essays now. Why fighter pilots cry. Women, just Google why fighter pilots cry. No one else writes about why fighter pilots are crying. You know what I mean? You'll find the essay. It's women and the end of vertical ambition. And what that talks about is why emotions become quite raw in flying training, and why females seem to be more able to access those emotions. It's very powerful. I'm doing work on that on myself at the moment with a performance coach. And I do work on that with my guys I coach. I coach women and I coach men individually, but I only run courses for men, and that's called the Spin Recovery Program for men that are in transitional spaces, okay? Men between the ages of about 40 and 60, okay? It's a 12-week course. It was about 6 men at a time, okay? It's a fantastic course. Guys get a lot of benefit out of this. Don't just ask me, ask them. Let's have a look. I'm going to read it out. Hi, sir. I'm currently a 16-year-old from Buckinghamshire at an all-girls grammar school, one of the luck or unlucky, depending on how you look at it, ones who don't have to sit GCSE exams. Lately, this school has been pushing us to think more about future careers. I've always been interested in flight and aircraft and also the military. I'm currently an air cadet, which has really sparked an even greater interest in becoming a pilot. Having looked at the RAF website, obviously I've got years to decide on this, but I was wondering whether you would be able to decipher the pros and cons of fast jet versus multi-engine transport pilots. All assuming I get in, I'm hoping to apply after uni. I would love to be able to fly really cool aircraft as a fast jet pilot, but also helping people and delivering humanitarian aid sounds very rewarding, and more so making a larger difference in the world. Also, I was wondering whether you knew anything about the experience of being a female in the RAF. I hope to hear back from you soon. Yeah, now, what this young lady's done is she said, okay, I'm a guy, but do you know anything about what it's like being a woman in the RAF? Now, I've said to women in the RAF before, why am I the one talking about women in the Royal Air Force? Where is the podcasts? Where's the Instagram, Twitter? What else have I got here? YouTube, Facebook. Where's the woman doing this? You see what I'm saying? Why am I the guy doing this? Because women will come and criticize me for talking about women, and I'm like, yeah, crack on, talk about them, but you won't. You don't want to. You don't want to do it, do you? So I'll have to do it for you then. And that's why this young lady's asking me. Which, fine. And I get why it is. I'll throw it out there, guys. Any man listening to this will understand this. A lot of the time, we don't see women helping women. Okay? That's it. Comments below. I'm sure there's going to be thumbs down. I've seen it. I see men helping women, helping men. And I have to almost say to the women in flying training, do you know that young lady that's just started on that course beneath you? And she'll say, no, I don't know her. I've seen her before. Have you reached out to her and offered her assistance at all? No. Could you do that, please? Because she's the only female on her course and there's 7 blokes or whatever. You know what I mean? Now, all I'm saying is don't go and have a massive loving and sit there and chat and, like the men do, tea and biscuits. And have what I'm saying is just go and chuck her shoulder and say, hey, if you want to talk about flying, whatever, I'm here. That's cool. Most women actually don't. They're like, I'm good with the guys. But remember, they've been institutionalized here into a very male-dominated arena. So although they might go, no, I'm happy. I don't need to chat to another woman. It's like, you probably do, okay? Because this is not normal. This is not a normal female space to occupy. This is, at the moment, a very masculine domain because the majority of the squadrons in the Royal Air Force that fly airplanes are male. Large majority. Remember I talked about that white privilege, about majorities. Big majority, small majority. You're going to find that the larger majority is serviced before the smaller majority. It's just how it is. I use an analogy. I have rabbits and I have 1 pheasant. And that's because my wife decided to adopt a pheasant at 1 day old because its mum, being an idiot, left it alone and we couldn't get it back together again. So I've got a pheasant I've had in the kitchen for the last 10 weeks feeding this thing. But it eats rabbit food. Because I've got lots of rabbits and 1 pheasant. And so I'm chucking rabbit food at this thing because I don't want to go and buy a whole load of pheasant food for a pheasant. I have actually recently done that. I've bought some food. But what I'm saying is it's in a minority. It gets what the majority are getting. It's just because it's easier for me to do that, than go and buy specific individual food for 1 bird that we're going to release soon anyway, although he seems to have fallen in love with my shoes for some reason. They are pretty good shoes. So what am I saying here? Yeah, so women, multi-engine. Yes, I can talk about both of those. I have trained women to fly military fast jets. My brother was a multi-engine pilot in the Royal Air Force for a long time, okay? But what I can't talk about is a woman being a woman in the Royal Air Force. It's like being an ethnic minority in the military. If you are in the British Army at the level of a soldier, when you enter, you'll see a lot more racism. You will see racism. It'll be apparent, I'm sure, because the people you're working with are emotionally insecure. They probably come from broken homes. The army seemed like the family they never had. They probably haven't got the education that you would have if you needed to be an officer or a specialist trade. So they go into the infantry and And as much as we look to stamp out racism in the military, we can't even stamp it out in society. So there's always going to be some racism, as abhorrent as that is. And as you mature as people and your brain develops, you realize that actually that person's going to save your life just as much as that person saves your life. And everyone is the same. As I said, unconscious biases aside. And you'll get deep into that and you'll read about it and understand what I mean by unconscious biases. These are things we don't even realize we're doing. This is the reaching out for, this is not even knowing, this is the unknown unknowns. There you go. So you'll find a lot of racism probably, or not a lot. Oh, I can't believe I said that. In fact, the boss, Mike Wigston, before he became Chief of Air Staff in the Royal Air Force, my ex-boss, he did a big study into this and he did find there was work to be done. Of course there's work to be done. There's always going to be work to be done. Always work until we have a 50-50 split in the UK. For generations, racism is going to be here in some form or another. Like David Starkey, I'm sure he's a racist, but I kind of like reading his books as well, but I'm sure he's a racist. You can be you can have racist tendencies, racist views, like David Starkey has. But this is the problem with young people when you cancel people. Now you can't ask David Starkey about his racist views. You don't get that anymore because he's gone. You've cancelled him. This is why you have to listen to people. And sometimes coming through the education system, which tends to be very liberal in the United Kingdom, you don't get a balanced argument. Sometimes you get a lot of no platforming where we don't want to hear what that person has to say, and it's like, no, listen to what that person has to say, because you may find some value of it, or at least you can listen to it and then challenge it. Okay, at least you can listen to it and challenge it. And within the military structure, I didn't see any racism at my levels. My levels were officer level. I didn't see any discrimination of any sort towards any of the foreign students that we flew. Not to say it wasn't there in some form that I wasn't aware of, but remember my job on the squadron was OC standards. It was officer commanding of the standards flight, which meant I set the standard with my 12, I had a team of 12 men. I didn't have any women instructing on that squadron at the time. There were no women. And if they were, I wouldn't necessarily put a woman into that standards flight unless she came up to the level of which the men were also at, and then she'd go in there as well, because you had to be the best pilots on the squadron to be in that particular flight, because you were these guys in this flight were teaching the other instructors how to teach the students, and they also taught the students themselves. So my job was to run that flight. Very talented people who taught the students. Taught all the instructors coming back from Typhoon and everything else, Tornado and everything. They taught them to be instructors. Took 9 months, and then those instructors would teach the students. So it had to be very, very good. But we were responsible for looking out to make sure that there wasn't any, there was pure tolerance, so that we had a working environment that all that was going to affect you, no matter what skin color it was, no matter what gender you were, was the flying training. Not because you were worried that someone was going to call you names or someone was going to belittle you because you're a woman. I mean, the Air Force takes a very dim view of that, by the way. Okay, very dim view of that, and it's not tolerated in any way. Okay, but what happens is if someone does make a remark, you're challenged. You are challenged on that. It's like that's, and I've never seen it, so I don't know. But I know what happens in other areas in the British Army, whatever. You are challenged on that. You're not like, that's not acceptable. So if you're not acceptable. We've gone back to race again, haven't we? But when it comes down to multi-engines and fast jet, let's talk about that, shall we? Because else we go back into race. Only because I think people are feeling a lot from this race at the moment. They're feeling a lot from the pandemic, and there's a lot of energy within the body that's quite negative. That's why I'm saying if you're feeling a bit confused right now, it's probably because of that. Yeah, fast jets. I would say my brother had a more varied career than mine. He was a Hercules pilot, much more varied career all over the world, doing a lot of interesting things. Don't think that if you are a multi-engine pilot and you're delivering humanitarian aid and everything else, you're not contributing towards a war effort. Your job will be ferrying troops around the world who are then going to go and fight battles. You could argue you've facilitated more death than a fast jet pilot would have done at that point, because you've just dropped 350 troops off in country who are going to go and kill lots of people, lots of the enemy, whereas a fast jet pilot might drop a bomb that's just taken out a bridge. You see what I mean? So everything you do in the military contributes towards the rapid destruction of the enemy. So, and that's important, by the way, that what I used to say about flying fast jet pilots, my job was to be as expeditious in the delivery of extreme violence as I possibly could. And that doesn't sit well with people, especially younger generation. And if you don't understand that, and I'll explain that now. So being expeditious is mean the rapid, you need to be rapid in that delivery of violence. And you need to be able to kill as much of the enemy as you possibly can in a short space of time as possible. And the reason we need to do that is because it stops wars. That stops conflict. If we target individuals and this sort of thing, like an individual soldier here and there, there's other soldiers that continue to fight. If you can take out networks, infrastructures, entire battalions, if you can stop that enemy from functioning, then they can't fight, and then lives are saved. You have to think this through in the longer term. So I hope that you're not thinking that being a multi-engines pilot is going to be anyway more acceptable for you in a mental capacity or in an ethical capacity than it would be being dropping bombs and using missiles, because it's the same thing. So whatever you do in the military, you are always aiming yourself towards the rapid and expeditious destruction of an enemy. So that just has to be the thing. It's not a flying club. I tell this to people, before they join. Have a think about this. It's not a flying club, guys. I pay you. Remember the last podcast, or one of the last ones I did, about the chap in flying training who was saying, how do you get over this and get through it spiritually and mentally and physiologically? I'm like, dude, you're thinking too much. Okay, it's the military. You're being taught to fly airplanes. You'll use those airplanes as a weapon system. Taught to fly airplanes, to use that aircraft as a weapon system. That pretty much is it. Think outside at your own time, but when someone's handing you money to learn to fly, take that money and learn to fly. Keep it simple. Take the money, learn to fly, and then take the money, learn to use the aircraft as a weapon system. Okay, that's really what you need to be doing. And I think this lady is going through that decision at the moment. She's 16 going, do I want to be in the military? Maybe I should be a commercial pilot and fly airliners, or do I want to fly fast jets because they look cool, but I don't know anything about them? Or do I want to fly commercial airliners or multi-engine, because I've been on a commercial airliner and I know a bit about them. So that work's being done now. I think hopefully we've covered that. Being a fast jet pilot, you tend to be stuck in one base and then you spend time on courses and you go overseas for a bit. Typhoons go to the Falklands and everything else. Multi-engines always seem to be going away from home, exercise here and there, but you get more time off when you're not down route, as it's called, not down route, not deployed. So you might come in and do a half day on a Wednesday and come back in on Friday because you've been away for the weekend and everything else. Whereas fast jet crews tend to get the weekend stand down, unless you're a fighter guy and then you're holding QRA, quick readiness alert. So what's her question here? Yeah, it's basically, do you know anything about being a female in the Royal Air Force? And I think I've put enough into that I've kind of said, I think I've said what I've said, and I've kind of exposed myself, and people are going to throw spears in the comments, and that's fine, because I want you to have the information. It's important that you understand when you come into the Royal Air Force, 14% of the Air Force is women. A significant chunk is ethnic minorities as well. Very, very diverse. I just have to look on their website for the diversity. It's amazing what they're doing. Amazing. And it's a great place to be. But the job is one of delivering exceptional violence in as expeditious manner as possible. And that has to be the job, because that's the way of stopping conflict. Further conflict. Last one, guys, I think. Hold on, let's have a look. 16 years old, and we're talking. This is why I don't want 16-year-olds writing to me, because I don't want to tell them about killing lots of people, or the potential too, because, Right, self-sabotage. Let's talk about this then. This is an email from a chap called B. Now, this chap called B, in fact, that last one actually from this young lady, I'll put a link in the bottom about When Fighter Pilots Cry, Women and the End of Vertical Ambition, that she can go and read. She's 16. If you write to a guy and you're 16 years old, you're going to get the truth back. Or if you write to a girl, of course, anything. Right, so this guy called B then, he's written an email to me, and I think we'll wrap it up after this. And in the email, he has said, he's laid out, he must have heard another podcast with me, and what he's listened to that. I like this. This is why I'm writing back to this guy. He's literally written like 2 small paragraphs, and then he's got, my questions for you are 1, 2, 3, 4, done. That's it. So he knows, and he's also he's underlined bits he doesn't want me to read out on these. So I got bits I'm not going to read out. Okay, I'm going to use other language in there. So he says, "Dear Tim, I'm writing to you regarding a predicament which I currently find myself in. I am someone who's just left sixth form, his age, you can imagine what that would be, and at a grammar school with 10 GCSEs, and I'm currently awaiting my A-level results in August. Being predicted good grades. I've been a member of the RAF Cadets for 5 years, and I've had great success as part of it, having been promoted to Cadet Warrant Officer. Oh, that's good. And having completed the Air Cadet Leadership Program. That's pretty cool. In February this year, I started my application to become a pilot in the RAF, having wanted to be a pilot since I first flew as a 14-year-old cadet. Due to coronavirus, for obvious reasons, certain elements of the application process have been delayed indefinitely. Oh, yeah, it does suck. I heard that. I heard that. It's until they work out how they're going to continue with that. But you're right. Life is in limbo right now. This is why a lot of people are finding this trauma in the body and why they're coming and doing my spin recovery program. That's fine. I'm currently awaiting CBAT testing, which just happens to be the stage I'm most nervous for. Due to these delays, I've had a lot of time to think and prepare for the testing. However, I've reached a point where I feel my performance is declining due to a semi-self-sabotaging state of mind. I'm constantly second-guessing my decisions to the point where I have even considered retracting my application to join the RAF, despite this being my dream job. This is not something, when I think about it logically, that I want to do. I believe the way I'm feeling is a result of too much time to overthink, underlying insecurities regarding my own ability, and partly due to guilt that some of my family do not want me to join the military. Check the theme of these emails, okay? Right. Don't worry about that, mate. Do your own thing. My questions for you are as follow. Do you think this is something normal and that I should be able to power through what I feel? Yes, we'll talk about that. Have you come across any ways to deal with low confidence situations like this? Yes, I teach this. Do you have any tips regarding CBAT testing which could help when the time comes to sit the test? Yes, I do. I don't like talking about CBATs, but I will. Do you think it's possible to prepare people to, or for people to over-prepare for CBAT, or is it just the more practice, the better? I apologise if this email is hard to understand, a little bit. However, I sometimes find it hard to express exactly how I feel all at once. Any thoughts and advice would be much appreciated. Please feel free to use this on a podcast video. Right. I'm going to concentrate on the questions. So just note in the text, though, that he is talking about being worried about CBATs, thinking about withdrawing from the process, understandably so. So there's some mental issues going on there. I understand why. And obviously there's family pressure as well. It's really easy for me as a 45-year-old guy to say, when people say negative things to me, it doesn't matter because they're not in my position. People are going to look at the comments below this video, look at the comments below, and you'll see nasty comments. You will see it, and look at how many thumbs down. People are going to hit the thumbs down now, aren't they? A lot of thumbs down. And they're probably because I mentioned the word killing or something. It could be anything. Or I said something about a race that someone felt wasn't aligned with their views, or sex. They feel I'm a sexist because I talked about women in flying training, even though I wasn't a woman. Millions of different reasons. Millions. And some people in the comments will tell me what those reasons are. And they may have actually watched a snippet of this, or someone may have copied this video and put it in something else and said, this guy's a racist, or this guy's a sexist. And it's very easy to chastise and to come against a middle-aged white guy because I'm actually quite safe, because I'm not going to come after you, because I'm not an ethnic minority. I'm not going to feel offended. I'm going to, and I don't mean that like an ethnic minority feeling offended, but there's a reason they feel offended, because they're in a minority and constantly, there is stop and search. There is all these things going on. I don't even want to get into that, but I can understand why someone like that is like, my goodness, I feel hurt from what you said. And for me, I don't feel that in the UK because I'm a white middle-aged guy. So people will come at me feeling safe that they can do so, knowing that I'm not really going to come back at them. I'm not. And any comments below, I'm not going to, it's fine. It just is what it is. So I think the main thing for this, really, from this guy is, he's talking about it being his dream job, but wanting to withdraw that. And he's listening to family who are telling him that he shouldn't, family who do not want him to join the military. Isn't that interesting? I've got a sister, by the way, my brother and I, same sister, obviously, but my brother and I both in the military, and I have two sisters. My younger sister is a police officer. My older sister is a doctor. She's a psychiatrist. But she used to take parts in marches when she had a young daughter. And when I was in Iraq, I think my brother was in Iraq as well at the same time. She was featured on the front page of a national newspaper with her daughter and a big banner saying, "Stop the war," and there's her two brothers literally at war. I don't mind that. She's got her view. We have great talks about it and stuff. And I'm very much anti-war. I was on Chris Thrall's podcast. I understand the necessity for conflict. Of course I do. And as I've said, because sometimes conflict is the only way to stop more fatalities, the only way to stop more grief and trauma in a world, in a country. If you don't understand that, You will. You will. Sometimes short, sharp conflict is the only way to stop mass conflict. So I understand sometimes the necessity for, as I said, exceptional violence conducted in an expeditious manner. That's because I was a military officer for 20 years and I read a lot about philosophy and stuff. But so I would say to this young man, you've got to square yourself away a little bit here. They're not joining the military. You're joining the military. All right. There's nothing to do with them. If you're, as I said to the young lady in the very beginning, there's a lot of negativity out there. You're a tall poppy. It's called tall poppy syndrome. I wrote a post on it on Facebook the other day. If you're not part of that Facebook community, I put a lot on there. Okay. It's fast jet performance. If you grow, there's a lot of people that think poppies should grow at the same rate. Everything should grow at the same rate. Okay. We can go into, different political ideologies if you want, but everything should be going at the same rate. Some people work really hard and some people unfortunately either choose not to or they're unable to because of circumstance, fine. But sometimes a tall poppy will grow. It's very easy in the UK to attack that poppy and to say, oh, you're a bad thing because you've got too much money or you're too successful. Whereas really we shouldn't worry about that. We should just do our own thing and blinkers on and just go forwards. It's nothing to do with that person. Don't try and bring them down. Just do your own thing. Just walk your own path. And in this case, this young man is going to have to walk his own path because the negativity from the family, like that young lady I spoke about, can be exceptionally damaging if you give it too much credibility. All right. You've got to give it the credibility it is. The family members might be really worried about this guy joining the military because they might have read a story about a fast jet crash or something, or people being killed in Afghanistan or something. And they're like, I don't want you to join the military because I don't want you to be killed in Afghanistan. Now, this young man, he's balancing that risk up. He's like, I'll take that risk. I'll take that risk. Like the young ladies, she's saying, I think I want to be in the military. I enjoy the family, and it is a big family. There's work to be done when you leave, by the way. God, there is work to be done. Hence, people coming on my spin recovery program. Hence, work I'm doing on myself. However, when you're in the military, it's a big family, and it's part. I miss that. I do miss it. I miss that a lot. I do miss that camaraderie a lot. So get over that, mate. Don't worry about that at all. Everyone has that, by the way. There's always someone in the family. My family's very left-leaning, hugely left-leaning. When I was in the military, oh, crikey, all public sector workers in my family, all public sector workers, no one in the private sector, very few people in the extended family in the private sector. Let's just say that. Very much education, healthcare. Okay. And the delays that this guy's experiencing now is going to give him time to think. As I talked about that guy in flying training overseas, that's bad. You don't want to have time to think. When you're in flying training, especially, or if you're going into flying training, you want the process to be started, actioned, moved forward, kept going. Now you're at Cranwell. Now you're in officer training. Now you're in flying training. That's what you want. Okay, that's the best way. And unfortunately, that's not the way that's happening at the moment because it's coronavirus. This is why people are feeling this shift. They don't understand it. They're like, what is this turbulence inside my body? And it's because this is not normal. Okay, this is chaos, and we're used to a bit more order. Okay. Arguably, this is actually order because of the conformity aspects. But what I'm saying is, this is unpredictable. The thing, Corona might come back. You see what I mean? Race relations might get worse. Blah, 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 blah. Everyone's feeling a bit of pain, a bit of trauma. So his performance is declining due to self-sabotage. You go and read the essay, by the way. It's called Why You Self-Sabotage, How Planning to Failure is Giving You Permission to Fail. And the first line I'm going to read of this says, it's a true story. My team of instructors had just told me that they were never going to fly with him again. And here he was, sat right in front of me. He had no idea. If you're a student going through military flying training and the instructors won't fly with you, then that's it. You fail. It really is that simple. I would go and read the essay. It's on the podcast somewhere as well. And it was about the guy not believing he could get to the front line. It was a guy. Yeah, it was a guy. I had a woman very similar to this, but this was a guy. And self-sabotage is actually more prevalent in women than men. It just is. Okay, and I talk to a lot of women. Okay, a lot of my clients are women in their majority late 30s, early 40s. A lot of my private clients. Okay, who pay me lots of money for this, by the way. You get it for free. Check that out. Make sure you hit a dislike on that as well, because we don't like free stuff, do we? Oh, no. So he's second guessing his decision, and this is underconfidence here. You just need to put an application. I always say this: you haven't got to accept the offer; just put the application in. This is what I say to people: put the application in anyway, and then work really hard towards it, and just see what happens. Because if you don't buy a lottery ticket, you can't win the lottery. You got to buy a ticket. So if you want to be a pilot in the Royal Air Force, you've got to apply. And a lot of this, I listen to this guy. He's not young. You know, he's nearing 20, and I'm like, obviously achiever, cadet warrant officer, obviously achiever. He's just worried that he might fail. So he thinks this is what self-sabotage is about. He's worried he might fail and what people are going to think of him. I do lots of things. And remember that girl in the first one we talked about where she said she goes out and she stretches herself? Let me just go find that for you now. She said about the karate and everything else, didn't she? She said, yeah, here we go. I deliberately put myself in situations which scare me so I can overcome them. All right. Now contrast that statement from that young lady who is 17 years old to this cadet warrant officer who's not. And I understand why, because he's got things to lose. That young lady she hasn't got anything right now. She's got nothing to lose, right? This guy's got something to lose. I saw this when I was an air cadet as well, because I was quite senior. I think I was a flight sergeant. I remember thinking, if I don't get into the Air Force, people are going to think I failed. You know what I mean? I failed a lot in other directions and during my flying training career as well, by the way. But you worry about it. You're never going to get over that at the age that this guy is or the age she is. It takes maturity. It takes development before you realise that people really only care about themselves. They genuinely do. Everything moves on. It just moves on really rapidly. And if you don't try, you're never going to know. I get a lot of men in their 50s write to me saying, I wish I'd tried and I didn't. And then I've worked in accounting It's been all right. Happy family. I just wish I put that application into the Air Force. I don't know why I didn't. Now, if that's a 50-year-old man telling you that, why would you think not to do it? Why would you ignore 30 years worth of his experience and knowledge? 30 years worth of all of that. Do you see what I mean? It's like, I would listen to that. If that's a 50-year-old man saying, put the application in. You can always withdraw it. You haven't got to accept it, but live that experience. Go and do the CBATs. How exciting is that? You get to see what they're about. I would look at it like that. Like, I'm going to go and do the best I can at the CBATs. I'm really going to work really hard at the CBATs, and I'll see what kind of score I get. You know, yeah, you might get a rubbish score, and you can't change that really. You can only improve your previous CBAT score by about 10%, and that's been tried and everything. So whatever you get on the previous CBAT score, the Royal Air Force will look at that and go, okay, he got 120. The best he's going to do is 132, and we're taking people over 135, so there's no point in doing CBATs again. That's how they work in their mind. They take the 10% of the previous score, add it on, and go. So, but you can practice for them, and I hate talking about CBATs because I didn't do them. I did something else. I'd use apps. There's loads of apps out there. You can buy them, use them on your phone. Some are free, some are not. Practice them. But like when you run a marathon, and I've run a marathon before, you've got to taper at the end. Don't be doing CBATs the night before. Give yourself, because here's the thing: when you do something new, guys, when your brain's working and you're doing something that's quite taxing mentally, you're building neuro pathways again. You're rebuilding and reconstructing things, and your brain is learning how to do things. If you keep doing these things constantly without any breaks, it finds it really hard to kind of go, oh, that needs to go there. It goes, oh, maybe it needs to go there because he's just done it differently. You got to give it some breaks so it kind of goes, oh, I'm going to do this. And then you go back to it and it's like, oh, I'm going to make that a little bit better. Oh, I'm going to make it a little bit better. So you've got to give it some breaks. So, have nights off. Yeah, have nights off. Give yourself some breaks. So practice, just practice. It's all about practice. So we've got all the questions answered now, I think. Do you think that this is something normal, as in underconfidence? Yeah. And that I should be able to power through what I feel. Don't let the mind override the body. I'm doing a lot of work in this myself right now. We're head people, but we should be body people as well. If you're feeling tension in your body, then it's not right. You're up against something. You're forcing yourself to do something that your body knows is wrong. I would look to embrace the opportunity you have in front of you of going and experiencing the Royal Air Force entry procedure. How cool is that? How many people, you're allowed to do it because you're a British guy. Other nationalities aren't allowed to do that. So you get to do it. I mean, the Royal Air Force, wow, it's amazing, right? You get to go to Royal Air Force Cranwell, the experience. And I'd say this, you just say, look, I'm just loving the fact that I'm at RAF Cranwell. It's such a privilege for me to be sat here at OASC doing these tests at the interview, so thank you for the opportunity. I'm just really glad of this. No matter what happens, I'll always be able to say, I tried. Now, if you don't get it, you're like, I tried as hard as I could. I did everything Tim said. I put the application in, I went there, I did the CBATs, and my CBAT scores weren't high enough. And, the Air Force at the time were taking the real top guys because loads of guys were applying. But I tried. Yeah. There's some power right there. There's some power. There's like, as opposed to the guy that says, I didn't try because I was worried I'd fail. It's like, dude, come on. What kind of excuse is that? You didn't try because you thought you'd fail. Right. That's not, those aren't people that I want to be around. I want to be people that challenge themselves, like that young girl at the beginning. Like, she puts herself in uncomfortable circumstances because that's how we grow. Why do you think they call it growing pains? Yeah, because it's a pain. It's a pain to grow. We have to go through pain. Going and doing the Royal Air Force entry tests and the CBATs and the OSC and everything else, yeah, it's a bit of a pain, but that's how we grow as people. So you'll grow either way. Do you think this is something normal? Yes. And can I power through what I feel? Don't power through it. Embrace it. Embrace it. Don't power through it. Look at it as an opportunity that you've been given. Like the Air Force has said, please come and do the tests. Embrace that. Look at the Navy as well, by the way, because I think reading this, Navy might suit you a little bit better. Have you come across any ways to deal with low confidence in situations like this? Yeah, you write to me and I come and tell you that, you're a cadet warrant officer for a reason. They don't make everyone cadet warrant officers. They make people cadet warrant officers who are capable of being cadet warrant officers. The Royal Air Force look at that and they realise this guy's a cadet warrant officer. That's a powerful thing. Okay, so you've got a head start there already. You don't realise it, but you have. Do you have any tips regarding CBAT testing which help when the time comes to sit the test? There's a lot online. CBATs, type CBATs online. How do I do CBATs out? And you'll find something under the students room, I think it is, OSC, a lot of information there, and use those apps. Do you think it's possible for people to over prepare for CBAT, or is it just the more practice, the better? I've got an essay on that about maths, pilot maths. If you type in Tim Davies, pilot maths, I think it is, why pilots keep the maths simple and why you should too. Read that essay. It's about approximating and refining, which is a really valuable thing for CBATs. A lot of people try and find the actual answer. There's always in CBATs, when there's like multi-guess or whatever it is, there's always one answer it can't possibly be. Then there's 3 answers it can be, but you can get rid of 2 answers. When you approximate and refine, 2 of the answers will go away and you end up with one answer that it only can be. Other people will try and work out the exact answer, but then they waste too much time and they don't finish it. Read my essay. God, what did I write that for? Yeah, fine. Any thoughts and advice? Cool. We're done. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll put a timestamp on all these guys, and then I'll get this out, and hopefully it's been useful. It's an hour of my time that I've given you. I am a director in a massive aviation startup. I'm also a director of Fastship Performance. I do run courses, okay, and I do have a lot of people pay me big money for an hour of this time because it's a one-on-one, and what you guys are getting at the age of 16 and 17 is free time. Okay, so please look at subscribing down there, hit that notification bell, because I'm now putting out some more sim videos pretty soon in VR, and I've got a great guy who's offered to send me a track IR. It's really cool of him, actually. He doesn't use it anymore. So, and I've got a company, shall we say, sending me some equipment, which is brilliant. And more importantly, the people that are sponsoring me on Patreon, and it is Patreon at the moment, they're sponsoring me on Patreon, that money is going towards better kit. So we can actually, I've just bought some stuff online today, guys, from a company, so I can make the videos better. So I can have the picture in window, and I can have some graphics on there for live streams, and I have view counts and all that stuff. We're going to turbo up this channel. It's going to be the greatest channel. And at the same time as I'm flying these airplanes, I'm going to be giving you this advice, okay? Because I want to talk about airmanship. This is why I haven't gone DCS yet. I've stayed with X-Plane as a flight sim. It's DCS, people want me to go weapons and stuff, and I'm like, go and play with your weapons. Go and play with your weapons. We can all pull a trigger. I want to talk about airmanship, because I want you to be able to fly the airplanes before you use them as a weapon system. And I want you to understand a lot of flying is like life when it comes to planning and debriefing and understanding, your purpose and what you're there for and stuff. And I really want you to understand that more than it looking pretty because you're shooting off weapons and stuff, okay? I want you to understand the real grounding nuances of aviation and what it means to people, because I'm a passionate guy about aviation. I've written about passion before as well. Okay, guys, some difficult content in there about race and sex. Take it for what it is, okay? It's just me giving you my opinion, and I hope you understand that. But I've trained a lot of people of many ethnicities, and I don't see a difference in them apart from that language, as I said. These were guys that were from overseas. I do see. Do I see people working harder? I see a more of a sense of pride sometimes in British black minorities that I've trained. I do see a sense of purpose and a real sense of value in what they're doing. And I've met their parents, and their parents, just absolutely love what they're doing. Great times, actually, when people graduate and you get to meet their parents, and you kind of go, oh, that's why you were like you were. Okay, I get that now. I see that now. You got that from your dad. Okay, that's great. That's going to come back to haunt you in many years. Okay, guys, thanks so much. Let me get this out. That was an hour. I'll put timestamps on it. Until next time, Tim Davies, Fast Ship Performance.